justice system. We're going to talk about how the law can be made to work for everyone, not only in Kenya, only all places in Africa. So without wasting any time, I'm going to start the interview. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm. So, as an advocate for the High
Yes.
Court of Kenya, what is the biggest
Yes.
legal misconception people have about the justice system?
I think once somebody interacts with, when you see a lawyer or an advocate, people imagine that I will automatically get what I want or what I'm requesting for, maybe in a legal suit. And most of the time, as we've said, that the wheels of justice are slow. It becomes a process that is sort of maybe, yes, slightly disappointing, but also um, to a big extent, people imagine that lawyers have a way to make things work miraculously. But we also rely on the judiciary in Kenya, on the laws of Kenya, and we have to follow the law to get what our clients want. It is not a miracle that just happens because, we've met up, you've explained your issue, and then I can easily solve your issue just with a snap of a finger. It takes time. There are procedures, and we also have to be governed by the law and ensure that we follow the law.
And
Yeah.
how do you convince an ordinary person like me to make sure that they go through the same legal process without a complaint?
Yes. One thing that, as you know, we have a lot of issues with corruption in Kenya, right? And sometimes you'll find somebody saying, you've explained, because one thing I have known, because I'm someone who came into the system way after a few years, let's say when I was a little much older than maybe an average young lawyer. I've understood the psychology of human beings and people generally. So I try in my practice to explain to my clients that, this is a process. I know what you are asking for. According to the law, this is what we can get, right? Something that is viable, something that is possible, so that you also are not over-promising. You are you are being you manage expectations. That's the word. You manage expectations, but also you keep lines of communication open. You should be able to be accessible. You should be able to communicate with your clients that this is where we are at. This is what's going on. Even when there's a glitch, yeah, maybe when they are not, we've not succeeded, you explain and become open so that you're not the type of a person, just as in life and every other profession. You should be able to be transparent with your work. You should be able to communicate that this is as far as we have gone with your work and this is what we are expecting. However, it's up to the judge or the magistrate to give us the orders, and we are hoping that we get what we are asking for. And you simply request your client for patience, so that from the beginning you have managed expectations. You do not overpromise, and then you don't deliver. You manage expectations.
Yes,
That's according to me. Yes.
yes. I think that's a good one. That's a good one. Gender and governance are key areas of your
Yes.
expertise.
Yes.
What are the biggest legal challenges women face today, and how can they be addressed in your view?
So that's I stumbled upon that particular line of work when I went to do my master's, and I didn't go for the typical LLM, the master's in law. I felt like I needed to diversify because I had interest in women's rights, especially, and the where women are in terms of opportunities, and there is access to justice. And so I did my master's in a course called Women Leadership and Governance in Africa. it is a curated course that is under a department called African Women Studies. And it's basically concentrates on the African woman, and we are able to dissect the process that women have come so far from pre-colonial times to the colonial times, and how Africa, before colonialists, used to treat women. And after colonialism, there was a different approach to women because women were revered by Africa. Africa revered women. We had women leaders. We had women who were queens in Africa. And so through that, even over the struggles, even during, like, if you go to South Africa during apartheid, you'll see the hand of women. Yeah, the ANC women had a very strong movement. They were able to push for issues. Here in Kenya, during our struggle for a new constitution, pre-2010, we had a very strong women movement of women behind the scenes. Some of who I interacted with during my masters, they were my professors, and they would tell stories of the struggle. And you've seen that they made strides. They pushed for a third gender rule in Parliament and the National Assembly, and we saw those results come. We are not where we are supposed to be, but steps have been made. There have been women who've made progress. Wangari Maathai, Martha Karua, they have pushed for governance and policies that have ensured that women have a better stand in terms of opportunities politically, economically, and socially generally. Laws have been put in place that have at least brought women a step higher from where they were. There is still a long way to go because, again, we live in a very highly patriarchal society, and some of the rights of women will still be ignored despite the laws that are in place. So I usually encourage women as a fact of that, from the saying that ignorance of the law is no defense. Learn your rights. Learn to have a voice. Learn to stand up for yourself, right? In any situation, as long as you are not in the wrong, as long as you're not destroying anyone's property, as long as you're not going against the law, speak up, you know? Do not sit down and say that, this is happening to me, this has happened to me, and yet you haven't spoken up, you haven't, sought help. I ran in my law firm, I run like a pro bono services for women around where I stay. If they want legal advice, if they want to file for matters to do with child custody and provision, small
That's a good
steps.
work.
I'm not saying that I have done a lot,
That's
but
a good
in my
step.
own, yes, in my own small way, here and there, whenever I can, even if a woman needs help, I will mobilize my friends kindly. Let's contribute something small and see how we can help her. Small things so that people feel that they have somebody who can listen.
Right.
You take your time and sit down and listen to someone's problems, and you realize that a lot of the things that women go through, even when we were doing our study during my master's, you realize that it is out of ignorance, lack of knowledge. Because when you break it down and this is what is available for you under the law, this is what you can do if you have issues about land, inheritance, or if you have issues with child custody, or if you are facing domestic violence, in a police station in Kenya, there is what we call a gender desk, right? That is the gender desk attends to issues of women. So when you go into a police station and you are facing domestic violence, you request for the gender desk officer. And when you break down those things, women were like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that I could do that. You mean I can do that? You mean I can also
Sure.
inherit land from my father? Yes, it's
Sure.
under the law. It is, those are things that are available to women. What needs to happen really is that more women need to know what's available to them under the law, and also how to enforce those rights. So
Sure.
if we have more civic education towards women, in with conversation like this and going out into society, talking to different women forums, groups, I live in an area that has the Maasai community.
Hmm.
I'm from Rift Valley, but I live in an
Wow.
area of Maasais. And a lot of the people around Maasai community still face forced marriages. Like I dealt with the issue last year of a girl who was being forced by the father to be married by somebody else. She was being forced into a marriage. The father had already taken dowry, and he was forcing her to go and get married, and it became this really huge fight. So you realize that this, as much as we live in, people who live in urban centers, and we are knowledgeable, we have structured our lives in a certain way, you don't imagine that there's somebody who is still going through a situation like that. Like, even I'm sure when you are in Juba, if you went to another part of Sudan, maybe remote areas, and then something happens, and you'll be like, that still happens. You mean?
This leads to my interesting question. Um,
Yeah.
in this country, South Sudan, you're in Kenya,
Yes.
and Kenya has made
Yes.
a significant step in democracy.
Yes.
And I hope in 10 years or in 20 years, women will be in a position to be maybe presidents of Kenya or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think any country, unfortunately, our country is a bit down when it comes to
Hmm.
addressing these issues? Do you think any
Yes.
country that can prioritize girl child education will be far behind in the economy, in the world economy?
Yes, I do think that is possible. You see, we have dwelt and lived in societies that I think we also have to appreciate that most African countries are young democracies. The oldest democracies are what, 60 something years old. Yeah. We cannot compete with maybe Scandinavian countries in Europe, who've been, they've been the way they are for, a few hundred years, right? They have evolved. They have been able to meet, certain healthcare issues, women's issues, all that. But us as Africa need to focus on our issues, the issues that are unique to Africa, right? Our issues are not like like women's issues in Africa are not the issues that American women face or European women face. I'll give you an example, Latjor. Um, Sometimes I look at, you are scrolling this social media, and you'll see people talking about having children. Like, somebody will give a scenario in the US, that's how, the childcare is very, very hard. Having children is like this. And you see, in Africa, like myself, children are are not are not really a big deal. Childcare is something that is, you'll have relatives, your mother will help you get somebody to take care of your children. It's not expensive to pay them. I have children, and it's I can't say, of course, yeah, taking care of children expenses, school fees, medical, nini nini, all that is pricey. But the aspect of, how do day to day, nitty gritties are not a very big headache to a lot of African women. We get a lot of help, right? We get a help from, if school closes, I can take my kids to the village. They go stay with my parents. At the village, there will be other relatives. They'll be playing around freely, and there's just a sense of community. So women here do not face the same challenges of raising children as they do elsewhere. So we have to look at also our issues in terms of democracy and governance that are unique to us. What are the challenges that we currently face? We have a lot of our countries have issues. We are dealing with issues of corruption, right? The big man syndrome. Mm? Most of our leaders feel like, they are not doing, they do not feel like, but they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing to their populace, right? You elect
Exactly.
leaders, and they
Do
go
you think
do their own thing.
do,
Mm?
do you think when all the countries in Africa got independence,
Yes.
do you think there was a missing link between the local chiefs? Because I think the mistake started from the chiefs, because
Uh-huh.
African way of being was supposed to be taken
Yes.
over in a different
Yes.
in a different way.
Yes.
Because having got independence,
Yes.
we are still
Yes.
in the same way of being as before.
Yes. That's why I was saying our issues in achieving democracy and good governance has to be looked according to also how we were as Africans. When we apply a lot of the Western democracy and their way of thinking, I think we miss something. I don't know. I have not
Exactly.
been
I
able to
get you
put it.
there. I get you very well. I get you very well on
There is
that point.
something that is it just doesn't align, and every time we are ranked against a system that is not applicable to our culture and our way of life as a people, it looks like we are doing so horribly, right?
Exactly.
It looks like we are doing so horribly. But we do know that if our leadership, if we aligned in a certain way and we change the mindset of our leaders, and we've seen a few who are trying, is it the president of Senegal? He's been
Burkina
able to
Faso.
pay the debt. Yeah, is it Burkina Faso, one of the West
Yes.
African countries?
Yes. Yes.
And the steps that they are taking, and you see that there's a different way that African leaders can take towards fighting the continuous oppression that we felt from the West as a continent, right? We have resources. The reason why they are fighting to try and be a part of conversations is because of our resources, right? We are a huge continent. We are way bigger than a lot of these other continents, and we have a lot of resources. What we lack is the right kind of leadership to show direction and say, these are going to be the steps that we are taking. We're going to be self-sufficient because we can. We are the fruit basket of the world, and we can do this. But we are missing something because I think we are trying to use as a level of measure that does not apply generally to our society.
Mm.
The same way I was talking about childcare. You
Mm.
cannot apply childcare issues in the US or in Europe to childcare issues in Africa.
Mm.
I don't think we have childcare issues.
That's clear. That's very clear.
Yes. Yes.
Let's try to connect the dots here.
Mm.
You are a professional mediator. How does
Yes.
mediation help in legal disputes compared to traditional court battles?
Mm, Mediation is a form of alternative dispute resolution.
Mm.
It is shorter. It is cheaper for
Mm.
litigants, and it takes way less time. So,
Right.
for instance, for court-appointed mediations, you will be given a timeline because a lot of cases, for instance, land disputes, right, will go on for years and years, like even up to 10 years. You'll find cases that have been here since 2000, yeah, and people just going back and forth, court, nini, nothing moves. But during if matters like in the land courts is given to a mediation, they are given a maximum of 60 to 90 days to resolve. So
Mm.
when the parties agree to go into mediation, because it is a voluntary process, when they agree to go into mediation, they sit down with a mediator. A mediator does not have an opinion on the process, unlike what we call arbitration.
Exactly.
Arbitration is different, but mediation is where parties find solutions for the problems that they have brought forth.
Mm.
So they sit down, they say, my issue is this and this and this, and this is my view. The other person also is given time to say that, I have an issue like this and this and this. And then now the mediator asks them, so according to you, one party, the first party, what do you think would be a solution that would help you settle this matter? And each party gives their view, and then they sit down and see, okay, this is achievable, this is achievable, this is what we can do, this is what we can do. If it is a land dispute, let's divide this land like this. And they come up with an agreement, and the same is adopted by court, and within a very short time that dispute is over. Of course, there are times also that the parties will not agree, and it is okay. and the matter will go back to court, and the court will continue with the court processes. But mediation, for a lot of people, for parties that do agree, it shortens the time that their dispute is in court, or that they have a dispute, even if it doesn't go to court, because there are mediations that are done without involving the courts. But the agreement that comes out of a mediation is adopted like it's a court order. So it shortens the process of justice, and it is a way cheaper method of achieving justice.
Right, right.
Yes.
This brings me to my second last interesting question.
Yes.
Women, as far as I know, are the right people to
Yes.
lead. Even in families,
Yes.
they know how to care
Yes.
for the family, they're
Mm.
the
Mm.
breadwinners. Anything that is
Yes.
done by a woman is excellent, is excellent.
Yes. Yes.
If, for example, breadwinners in the family, if they are women, you know how
Yes.
they take care about the family than a man do.
Yes.
What do you think should be put in place to get more women
Mm-hmm.
leaders in Africa, in most African countries, than it is now?
I think we should be able to, as I told you before, you realize that a lot of women do not have access to information, but also society in general needs to embrace women as leaders. We have good examples of leaders. A lot of women have less scandals when they are leaders. They have less scandals. And when we are able to, us now as activists, yourself, people who highlight, the good in the leadership of women, we're able to bring that out and have a bigger voice, so that women leaders are looked at as an alternative to better leadership. I think we just need more sensitization of our communities to understand that, we need to have a change of our leadership. And one of the first steps is that we appreciate the women in our societies who've done this. We've had less issues when we have a woman as a leader, for instance, and you give examples and you encourage people and women also themselves to take up positions of leadership.
Yes.
You see, in Kenya, after 2010, when we came to our first election in 2013, 2017, we had several number of governors as women. We had women governors. We had Charity Ngilu. Then we came into 2017. We had the late Joyce Laboso. We have Waiguru. So we've had women leaders who've been exceptional. Right now, there's a governor called Gladys Wanga. She's one of the best performing governors in the country. She has really done so much for her area of for her county in Homa Bay. So we pick out the good examples and use that to encourage women also to get into leadership, right? I think also it's a job for the women themselves to bring forth more candidates, to stand up for positions and get into elective positions and be the change makers that we are looking for as an African society, and push for their voices. As I told you, the more you keep quiet, the more you'll be ignored, right?
Right.
But when you speak up, when you come out, when we had last year, when we had demonstration for ending femicide in Kenya, right? You saw the very popular demonstrations that were in Kenya that were against the budget. After that, we had demonstrations against for ending femicide in Kenya. If we had more voices in those communities coming out and standing up for women, let us end domestic violence, FGM, the killing of women, and we have leaders, women leaders coming up and taking positions of power and changing the system from within. We need more women to also stand up. We cannot keep saying, so what do we do? No, women need to stand up as us
Right.
and say, we're going to bring change. We are going to be the change makers.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a beautiful
Mm.
one. I can't let you go without asking this final question.
Yeah.
Looking at the legal landscape in East Africa, what role
Yes.
what role does social media play in shaping legal cases and governance?
Okay. Social media is a game changer in a lot of ways. But also, or for a lot of our systems, especially like I'll give an example of Kenya because that's the one I interact with. You see, a lot of social media does not really influence a case because you're not supposed to talk about a case when it's ongoing on social media. You can only come and highlight the outcome. But I do believe that, having interacted with various people, especially on platforms like LinkedIn, where a lot of professionals come and, diagnose different issues. So in the legal landscape, you realize that there has been a lot of progress. You get to learn about the different progress that is going on within the justice system and how far we have come, right? It is helping us to disseminate information. It may not be to everybody because a lot of people also are not on social media, but it's getting the word out because, people in the villages like in Kenya already have access to the internet and smartphones. And so when you use the way to use social media, even during the demonstrations for against the finance bill of 2024, social media was used to mobilize people, and people stood up and they were on the streets and they stopped the finance bill from being implemented. So we can use social media positively, but in terms of it influencing what goes on in the courtrooms, it really has very little influence. But it is a good platform to pass out a message of, let's stand up. Let us stand up. There is what is this and this is going on, and let us stand up for this. A lot of also issues have been highlighted in social media have ended up in court in terms of if there is an unfairness somewhere, somebody highlights it on social media, and we've seen bodies like the Law Society of Kenya and other bodies taking up the issue and maybe taking it to court and having it addressed and resolved for the purposes of benefiting communities or individuals who are facing oppression. So social media has assisted many people to access justice, but per se, as you said, does it influence the decisions in court? It does not, but it assists people, a lot of people, to access justice because you see, if there is somebody with a certain plight somewhere and it's highlighted on social media, there are many people who will be interested in assisting. If it needs the court to come in, it is filed in court, and they are able to get the justice that they need. So it has assisted us to open up several communities and reach out to individuals who originally may not have been able to access justice.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Master Koech, I really appreciate this time and your time. And to everyone watching, Master Koech, PhD advocate for the High Court of Kenya. I really appreciate the time. I hope you guys are well versed now with the legal system and all the insights, the beautiful insights that she has provided. Thank you so much. You can find her on LinkedIn. You can find her on all social media handles by Martha Koech. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I hope our
You're
audience
welcome.
will be so happy with this. Thank you so much.
So talk soon.
I
Have a
hope one
good
day
day.
we're going to do this again. It has been very lively.
Yes, we will very
Thank
soon.
you. Thank you so much. Have a good
All
day.
right.
Thank you.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.